Go ahead and get into a comfortable seat, or you can lie down if that is appropriate for you tonight. We'll start with a 7-minute warm-up, and then after that we'll move into a 15-minute meditation. You'll hear a bell to signal when we start. Get comfortable. And start your inhalation and exhalation through your nose. Not forcing the breath, just in its most relaxed state. Again, just scan your body up and down and get a sense of how it's feeling this evening. Is there tension? Are there areas that are hotter than others? Simply take notice of your body and begin to relax fully, using your breath as a tool. With every exhalation, completely relax. With every inhalation, keeping your mind's eye nice and bright and alert. tension that may be in the temples of your head, the space in between your eyebrows, your corners of your mouth. Begin to let go, relaxing all those muscles down the neck where stress tends to heart. Relax your shoulders, your arms. Try to see what it's like to completely relax even your fingertips and the nails on your hand or on your fingers. Move down that spine, relax your hips. Attempt to even relax your organs. Your hamstrings, down the leg to your calves. Take note of how it's changed your breath. Then begin to now start relaxing speech, letting go of all the noise that occupies the space of the mind. See if you can get your speech in its most natural state, where it's completely still, void of chit-chat. Using your breath to exhale and release. Then for the remainder of the session, begin to settle the mind in its most natural state by releasing any thoughts, images, visuals that may occupy the space of your mind. So that at the end of this pre-meditation, you've completely settled and relaxed your body, your speech, and your mind. stretch for about 30 seconds and then we'll resume. So this next session will be about double that time.
Can you tap the mic?
There we go. Begin by recalling the stillness of your body, your mind, your speech. You should be fully and completely relaxed by now. So sitting for the entire duration of this meditation shouldn't be a challenge. Begin by taking a few breaths, inhaling and exhaling through your nose. And find somebody in your life who you see as suffering quite a bit. Identify someone you know in your world who is struggling. However you need to identify that is up to you. But pick one person. Someone you love. Or someone maybe you want to love. But pick someone you know that you're close to, who's going through a challenging time in their life right now. Someone you'd love to help. Then I want you to bring this person and visualize them sitting right across from you, knee to knee. Not a photo of them. Visualize them as if they're sitting right here. You can smell their fragrance or their detergent on their clothes or the shampoo that they've used. Greet them. What color are their eyes? What's the color of their skin today? What does their hair look like? What are they wearing? Spend some time really being able to see them. And then I want you to be able to feel and get a sense of their struggle, the challenge that they have. This one could be visualized through a conversation, or just by observing and looking at their face and their body. Or perhaps it's easier to see them in their own surroundings, in their own environment, as if you're a fly on the wall, observing and watching them. Pick a visualization that best works for you. But spend a few minutes seeing and understanding and feeling however way that's best works for you, and understanding as much as you can the pain, the fear, the doubt, the insecurities that this being may have. This meditation is not a thinking state meditation, but rather a feeling state. So the goal here is to be able to feel the pain of the person that you've chosen. wherever you are with your visualization, I want you to bring that person back right in front of you. And all their pain and suffering. I want you to be able to look into their eyes, and with your eyes, reassure them that you're going to find a way to help them, and that you can, in fact, help them. Gain their trust, and also cultivate and generate confidence that you can, in fact, help them. And what I want you to do is start using your breath bit by bit and drawing what will look like black soot out of their body through their nose that ends up hovering in between you and this person. The soot is the expression of all the pain and suffering that you're going to be pulling out of every cell in their body. Draw all of it out. You may not even a speck behind. Hovering as a dark black cloud, almost like soot. And begin to bring it near to you, consolidating it into what looks like a marble. Hovering right beneath your nose, not solid though. And on the count of 3, I want you to inhale the black soot in through your nose and down into your heart, where it will then transform into radiant white light, destroying all of the pain and suffering of your loved one. 1, 2, 3. See bright light flooding the room, spreading from your heart. See how it looks bouncing off the light from your friend sitting across from you. See how it transforms their face and their body, having all that pain removed from them. See the weight that you've taken off their shoulders. Spend a few breaths here, seeing their transformation. What do they look like without all that pain that they carry around? See them being radiant, joyful, alive. Feel it in your body. Let them thank you for what you've done for them. Accept the gratitude fully. Rejoice. In seeing your loved one be free of suffering. And dedicate all the effort that you've put in helping them. You can dedicate it back to them. You can dedicate it to all beings. You can dedicate it to someone who's been there to help you have the strength to even do this. Dedicate it. Dedicate your efforts. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Nice. How was that? Okay? Okay. Was anyone lost? Okay. Was everyone able to find a friend?
Yeah.
Was it hard to find one? Sometimes I'm like, I don't know, there's so many. You can also do that meditation on yourself. It's quite difficult, but it's possible. But I'm putting that out there. It's a nice one to do on yourself, if you're ready for it. But something to just throw out there. Or you can always do atonement on yourself. If the person that you see in the world that is suffering the most at the moment happens to be you, of course, why not, right? And see what that looks like and feels like. Okay, nice. All right, so we're going to start with class tonight with a quiz. We're going to go back to class 2 because we never did a class 2 quiz. And last week, because my teacher was here, I didn't want to interrupt the flow with the quiz. So we'll do, I don't know, just 2 groups, 3 and 3. And for those of you that haven't been in class, this gives you a great opportunity for those of you who have been to teach. And then we'll go with that and then go into, actually we're going to go into a review for class 3 again.
Yeah.
What do you put for grade? Oh, nothing. 100%, hopefully, it better be.
Oh, I always interpreted it as what grade am I? Like,
Oh.
that's how I interpreted it.
Mm-hmm.
Freshman. Alright. Next, we love this reality and give one example of each. is like subtle reality, super subtle. Like it's like
Was this class one
this
too?
is class 2. Yeah. They spent yeah, I think he's sneaking around. Herbal. Yeah. Do you remember something? No. Obvious slash evident, hidden, and deeply hidden.
That's the first question.
Reality.
Right, obvious.
Reality. So obvious is younger.
And then that which is invisible. Three rules of reality. Here,
So do you want to do an example?
proceed without problems.
Obvious.
NG, probably one example as well. Dash G Y G Y U R. Those things which you can perceive without problems. Colors, for example. I guess it's like
This guy's level.
yeah.
Oh, I think it's like things that, yeah, things that you could observe or experience through your senses. Okay.
Two is gear, cable, connection, dash G Y U R. The next one is those things which are hidden, right? So those things which are hidden. It's a problem where she like dropped the pen.
Yeah, like you can't, you didn't see it, but you could.
So deduce, yeah. Deductions for something. Did the example drop the pen? So the example she gave was like she was holding the pen up, but then she like dropped it behind her. When you use deductions, see it? But you know there was a sound, and you deduced that the pen made the sound. So I guess that should be making that assumption, right? It's like, you know, you hear a car crash, and you kind of just like this. Third one is Shintu, here, which is SHINTU, and that's the same as the second one. And that's deeply hidden phenomenon. Or you hear someone clap their hands, right, but you don't see them. This is things like that.
So
Example would be,
another sense.
yeah, subtle workings. I guess their sound,
Yeah, it seems like you can still observe it with the senses, but it's like, it's almost like something, it's almost like it's something that's happened, and you're just like, oh yeah, these things came together, and like reducing like this, must have happened.
Right. She gave, one of the examples that she gave was the, like seeing a mother lips like the child, but you didn't see that previously. I don't know if you read it, but it's direct, correct, without perception. That's why I didn't know he was upset. No judgment, like you just saw the anger part, so you deduced that correct. She might be the mom or something.
Yeah.
No judgment. And then there's
Or I like this example of like, you know, someone parking in the middle of the street and no one can drive through. Yeah.
Correct. Deducting. Deeply hidden phenomena, like the subtle workings of karma, right?
Yeah.
I don't know an example for it.
What is it again?
It's deeply hidden phenomenon,
Okay.
like the subtle workings of
Like,
oh, is it like
reasoning?
correct deductive reasoning? Is it like the planting of seeds and then the ripening of them, but not?
Karma is like living with mind. So yeah, I guess it's like, yeah, like, I guess when the seed is and I guess what that means is like,
Can be good or bad, right?
yeah, like your seeds are like currently experienced and like presently is from a seed that was planted in like in the previous time, past life, where it's like it has that, yeah.
Because, I mean, the first type
Even
of
just
perception
thoughts,
doesn't have to be visual, but it does come from our
doesn't
senses.
necessarily have to be auditory, but like if you think something negative or somewhere else,
This one,
like you do, just that's already possible.
Name the two basic types of valid perception and what levels of reality they are used to perceive. Two basic types.
Types of direct perception that you have. Correct perception, direct, not dependent on reasoning. Involution, NGUN, SUN, I believe. Right. So that's like,
It says, can you perceive all three levels?
you're actually like seeing it. Right.
So that's the first question.
Of the what?
The cupcake.
What are you trying to say about that?
The cupcake. Oh, I remember like he was saying like, I think it was like the examples of.
Is it perception you're talking about?
I just remember when you were saying like, it was using like not valid perception, I think, like when you see the cupcake and you're like, oh yeah, it's a cupcake, but it's like, it wasn't the freshness of like the existence of the cupcake.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
oh, that's a cupcake.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Okay, remember that.
So Nelson saying direct or correct perception, using our senses, awareness, thoughts to directly perceive something.
Subtle workings of karma, so that's deeper here. But that is what our laws say. Right? And isn't that as the first question? Is can you perceive all three levels of what I was? Yes. Fair enough. That depends on the
Let's get confused, like, I for each,
What was the third question?
Yeah, yeah.
and then the other type of valid perception.
Is it deductive reasoning? Check out some.
I got down to.
So that goes back to that clearing sound and reducing, maybe
I
that's
got down to
something
the person
Using logic.
using
who has these five qualities.
using logic to like put
The
two
protector.
together. And
Those contours.
So like how are these different? Because this is talking about levels of reality and then the way, the types of perceptions, valid perceptions to use to perceive those realities. I think it's like, here's what you see, this is what you use to experience it.
yeah, that's a good explanation.
Give the text of Master Dionysius, famous opening statement.
And those turn into
Is that the
person's
I bow down?
perception.
Oh yeah, I think I like did.
I bow down to the person who has those five qualities, is that it?
Mm-hmm. Down to
I bow down to the person who has these five qualities. And then colon, the protector, those on to bliss, and the teacher,
The younger.
those who wish to benefit. Center healers. And those who have turned
Yeah, when I was a kid all the time, though,
Yeah.
my hands are dead for writing.
And I'm writing things out and like drawing, and it first single word. Used to like
person.
a red
Yeah.
line,
Valid perception.
Seems we won't even use our hands.
Twirl or something.
Some of the things to people don't like themselves, so
Use it as well as Tibetan as well.
Right? The what?
The Tibetan.
Oh, do we have to put Tibetan in? It's okay.
I don't know.
You can, if you want to.
Let's do it.
My mother likes Tibetan. Do it. Do it.
I mean, then you can have coffee, and you can be, you know, drawing a screen something, and you can be doing research on something live. You know, it's really multitasking.
But then like how much, what other parts of my brain to like pick up
Pick it up, and you pick it up,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we did the shopping, maybe the shit, everyone's really smart.
Yeah.
Have those questions.
Most common things, you know.
What? I know, right?
Okay, we're gonna go, no, we're gonna go through it together.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, first question is what?
Name the 3 levels of reality.
3 levels of reality. So this is just basic, 3 levels of reality that are existing at any given time that we are all aware of, or not. Now we're aware of, which is what? What's the first one?
That which is obvious.
That which is obvious, which is like what?
Direct perception.
Direct perception. So give me an example.
The wall is.
The wall is white.
G's the best.
I'm the best. Thanks. Okay, so there's just obvious kind of colors and shapes, things that are direct perception. G's the best may not be
It's
direct
okay.
perception.
Yeah. I should have put that too fast.
Subjective
Yeah, it's like, that's actually not a direct perception. Right. You know, G's wearing gray and black. Surprise. That's a direct perception, or that's the obvious reality, right, or the evident. What's the second kind?
Those are hidden, subtle.
So subtle realities,
Chooses deduction.
like what?
Like hearing something outside, or someone dropping that pen behind their back.
Right.
Being able to perceive that the pen is behind you.
Right.
You don't see it.
If I'm here and there's something here, it's like, oh, there must be something. Geez, hands in her pocket. I hear a sound. There must be something in her pocket, right? It's the deduction. Or it's like, is there a mouse behind the wall? Be that too, right? So some sort of deduction that's being made, something that you don't see, which we do all the time, right? The third kind is what?
Deeply hidden phenomena.
Deeply hidden phenomenon. What is that?
Like example.
Yeah, give me an example.
The subtle workings of karma.
Yeah, so the subtle workings of karma. So it's things where, so deduction is, I don't see the answer. I can't have a direct perception of it. And when we say see, we're using our senses as well, right? I don't have a direct perception of it, but I can deduce, and through reason, right? I can understand an answer to a question or that I may have. The subtle, not the subtle, the subtle workings, I'm sorry. What is it called? What did you use for the third one?
Hidden phenomena.
The hidden phenomenon. The hidden phenomenon is something where you don't have an answer to it, no matter what. It's like, if I had gone on that plane 5 seconds later, right, could it have changed the course of my life in terms of what would have happened, right? Or an accident that happened. It's like, if that one person wasn't there at that given day, maybe that person wouldn't have died. Why did that happen, right? So things that happen that you don't have an answer to. Why do good things happen to bad people, right? And bad things happen to good people, or things like that. So the subtle workings of karma that
can't seem to use deduction to be able to answer, but you have still a question to that. Great. Second question. What's the second question?
Name two basic types of valid perception and what levels of reality they are used to perceive.
Great. Two different kinds of valid. Wait, what was the question? Name the
Name
two
basic types.
of valid perception.
Yeah.
Okay, and what levels of reality they are used to perceive. So what's one kind of valid perception?
Things that you can perceive through your senses.
Yep, great. So like the direct valid perception, things that you can experience and see through your senses. And what's the second kind?
Deductive valid perception.
Exactly. So we just talked about that, right? So there are different ways that you can perceive things. And then the third question.
Or the second part of the second question.
Oh, is the second? Okay. Yes.
What levels of reality they are used to perceive.
Yes. What levels of realities are they used to perceive? So direct valid perception, what levels of reality do you use to perceive that?
Probably the first level.
Yep, exactly.
And then the second one is for 2 and 3.
Yep, exactly. Hidden and deeply hidden.
And do you need to be enlightened for the third one or no? Not really.
You do.
You do. Okay. With a hidden phenomenon to really understand it.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's a good question.
So wait, were we right?
Yeah, you were right.
First and the second.
But the second is for the second and third, but the third we were right that you need to be enlightened to fully understand.
To fully understand.
Does
But to
everyone?
partially understand,
You can intellectually
You can intellectually understand. Yeah, but to fully understand it, the hidden reality you have to have.
Emptiness too, right?
Emptiness is the second one.
Oh, emptiness.
Yeah, emptiness you can use deduction.
Right, but if we directly perceive it, then what was
You
that?
can directly perceive emptiness without being enlightened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when we talk about direct perception of emptiness, that's something you can do
Right.
you can do that.
Right, because Geisha Michael Roach isn't enlightened, but
Yeah.
he claimed to
Yeah.
perceive it, right?
Actually, I don't even know if he's claimed to perceive it, but
Oh, I thought you wrote the Tibetan people.
he has spoken about it.
Oh.
But I don't know if he's directly claimed it
Oh,
per se. I haven't heard it. I'm not gonna say yes to it. Last question, or is it the next one?
Last one.
Which is that? Which is
Give the text of Master
Dignata?
Dignata's famous opening statement.
Great. And what is that?
I'll read it. I bow down to the person who has these five qualities: the protector, those gone to bliss, the teacher, those who wish to benefit sentient beings, and those who have turned into persons with valid perception.
Nice. Awesome. Great. Nice job, everyone. Okay. Cool. All right, so here we go. So last class, we did class 3. When my teacher was teaching, I know that we didn't have slides. So what I thought we would do today or tonight is we're going to go through it fairly quickly, but just to make sure that you have all the terminology in case you skipped anything or missed anything. And then we'll take a break, and then we're going to regroup and end the class with discussions of how do these concepts, again, the reason why I'm doing this is that it's all great and fun and amazing and probably incredibly, I hope at least, insightful to learn these concepts. But if you're not applying it and figuring out a way how it relates to your life, like, it's like, okay, great. So then I know that there are these 3 different realities, these direct perception and perception. So what, right? So what? So I know that, now what? What do I do with that information? So I really want to be able to sit tonight and talk about how are these things working. We're going to review what we talked about last week as well, which I think gives us a little bit more meat on the bone. Actually, we're vegetarians here, so I'm going to say that gives us more substance. Huh? Coconut meat on the bone. And so that, I think that will help in terms of leading the discussions further. I think I was just reviewing notes again, and I feel like it's a lot of information that's helpful. So here we go. The Tibetan, can you say Sardu?
Sardu.
Milue? Rigpa. Again, Sardu, Miluwe, Rigpa. So this is the definition of pramana. Sardu means, oh, sorry, my animations are off. Sardu means fresh. Miluwe means not mistaken. And Rigpa is state of mind. So it's the definition of what we say pramana, or we call it sema. Does anyone remember when we talked about pramana or sema?
A perception made from like an unaffected mind.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm like, oh,
Bless you. Bless you. Ooh, bless you.
Thank you.
I have the words wrong.
That's right. That's right. It's a perception from an unaffected mind,
Oh.
right? An unaffected state of mind. So this is the technical textbook definition of it, but we talked about it, John talked about it last week about how it should be fresh. And we're gonna go into the different ways of.
Is that the cupcake? Can you bring up a cupcake?
There was a cupcake analogy last
There
week.
was, I think those were part of the 5 non-correct perceptions,
Yeah, that's right.
like assumptions,
So,
new freshness.
We're almost there. There will be the cupcake. So just definition of pramana is another way to say it is a fresh and mistaken state of mind. Or we've also said it in class as unaffected state of mind, meaning you're not affected. You're not intoxicated. You're not plagued with afflictions. I know at one point, Noga, you're like, well, how do you know? I feel like what if you're affected to some degree at any given point, which is valid. But the idea is that you'll know the difference between your general state versus when you are affected. And there should be, at least I hope, a significant difference between when you can tell your mind is affected versus when it's not. That being said, it's relative. It would have to be for each person. What is your unaffected state of mind, at least from my perception, may be my affected state of mind, or vice versa, right? Does that make sense?
I have a question. Why is there a difference of using the term sema or pramana? Is it like Tibetan versus
That's right.
Sanskrit?
Yeah, that's right. So pramana is Sanskrit and sema is Tibetan.
And it's TSEMA.
It's TSEMA. And then we talked about 5, that's a weird slide, which are not, 5, inaccurate perceptions. Thank you. Sorry. So 5 inaccurate perceptions that we'll be talking about. Okay. So one is lokshay. Can you say lokshay?
Lokshay.
Lokshay is when you're way off the mark. And the way John talked about last week was you see things completely wrong, almost ass backwards, way off the mark, opposite of the way they really are. So you know that a perception is invalid when you're just totally off the mark, right? You hear a dog barking and you're calling it a cat. You think it's daytime, but it's actually nighttime. So there's things that are completely off the mark. That's what this one is.
So it's like you would really know you have an affected mind.
Yeah,
Right.
when it's totally off, right?
You gotta be
This is
expert.
probably a bad example, but it's a real example. You're out at night. I mean, this is like me in college. So you're out at night at a bar, you've had way too much to drink, and that guy looks so hot. The next morning you wake up and you're like, oh my God, no, that was such a bad, I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't. My perceptions weren't valid because my mind was affected, right? So I know that it wasn't because it was totally off the mark.
I was gonna say, the current debate with flat earthers.
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're sober you know, they're not like on drugs or anything, and there's a huge debate, and they have all this backup facts supposedly. Not that I'm a flat earther or anything, but I'm
Are
just
you
saying.
sure?
Yeah. But,
Yes.
I mean, they might think, you know, they think that way,
Sure,
for round the globe people.
yeah, sure. At some point, yes, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Yes, that may be true. Yeah. But we also thought at one point the Earth was square, so, you know, at some point there, through evolution, there's a reality that we also realize.
I'll agree too.
So, okay. Second one is called Taesom. Can we say Taesom? Again, Taesom. And Taesom is doubt, which I think this is fascinating. When the mind is split about the object. So what they're saying in Tibetan scripture is, your perception isn't valid if there is doubt in that perception. Yeah. Because the doubt creates conflict, right? It splits the mind.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, that is interesting.
The presence of doubt means it's not a valid perception. Because when you have, so, is the earth round? Is it flat? Is it round? Is it flat? But that's a little, if we know what it is, so that's, whenever you have something where you're looking at, you have a perception and you have doubt that clouds your judgment is another way to maybe think of it. But you've had moments in life, at least I hope you have, I hope I'm not the only one, where doubt has clouded my mind and I couldn't see clearly. And I know after the fact that the doubt had almost, it plagued me to the point where I made a choice and I wasn't sure which way to go in that moment, because the doubt created so much affliction and conflict that my perception of what's going on, it wasn't correct, it wasn't valid.
Okay, so this is my question. Like everything you just said,
Yeah.
Yes,
That
I
works.
completely.
Intellectually works.
Yeah, and I have had that same experience. Like, got it. What I don't understand is like if we're in general, like in this class, forgive me, I've missed a couple, so like maybe it's a little bit different, but like it seems like this concept, bigger concept, is like questioning how we see reality and like where these things are coming from. So my question is, if we're talking about doubt, making things not a valid perception, like how do we go from the place of like you're unquestioning about what appears in front of you, to like you have to question and create doubt, but then it automatically makes nothing valid. So
in terms of worldview, like when you're questioning, is this coming from me? Is this not coming from me? Is it not? In terms of, can you give me a specific?
I think I'm thinking generally, but I'm also, I mean, I wasn't like, I think I'm thinking more like situation to situation. Like, for example, like after going to a couple of classes, you know, I'm at work and I have an interaction with someone, I feel frustrated, and you know, like things, you start to like question, oh wait a minute, like did that really happen, or like just a situation.
Sure. Yeah.
And
was that person being a jerk to me or not? Did I misinterpret what they said? Maybe it wasn't this, maybe it was that, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was that.
Yeah.
Like that. Or an email that comes in, you're like, what on earth are you trying to say? And it just got, it's like, maybe it's not that, maybe they're trying to say it this way, and I'm trying, like when there's doubt in that way of how things are interpreted.
Yes. Or like what?
When you have moments of doubt and things are being influenced and you're not sure which way it is, in that moment, that situation, what they're saying is that it's not that the perception isn't in fact happening, but it's not considered a valid perception based on the scriptures, because in that moment, you're affliction has clouded your ability to see truly what is actually happening.
Okay,
That's all it is.
okay.
It's not a judgment of like, it's right or wrong. It's just not considered valid based on this definition.
Okay.
Because it clouds. I mean, that's my interpretation of it.
But then, yeah,
Go ahead.
let's say I go to see a show
Yes.
and I like it or don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I'm confident about how much I like it or
Mhm.
don't like it.
Uh-huh.
I have no doubt.
Yeah.
That it's valid, given that I haven't had a drink or anything. But if I do doubt, then my perception is not valid. Then which is it? Like, what am like, what of any of these realities is valid?
I don't,
Like if you're like, I don't know if it was good or not.
yeah, if you're indifferent is different than
No,
doubt,
I'm talking, yeah.
right? If it's like, I'm not sure if it was good, or I'm not sure if it was good, or I think it was good, and you're in a situation, right? You're watching a show, and during the whole show, you're wondering, is this good, is this not good? I don't know, I can't even tell. And that's what you're doing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. In that moment, your probably perception of the show can't be valid because you're in here. That would be my interpretation.
Right.
That you can't experience what's really happening because you're so caught up on the doubt of whether it is or not, whatever it is, instead of just being able to see what it is at face value. The doubt, I think, is something that I find fascinating because I do think when it splits your ability to actually see the object, the doubt is something where it actually splits your ability to see the object. And so you can't see what's validly happening because it's been split. You don't get a holistic view of what's really going on.
Okay, so what's the action here if we are spotting doubt? What are we doing to step away from?
We're going to talk about that during discussion. But this is just to show you a presentation of the 5 different elements that are considered inaccurate valid perceptions.
It's almost, I mean, the way that I'm kind of thinking about it as you guys are talking, it's like when you take the negative space of something to define the positive. It's like, sort
Yeah.
of seeing these,
Yeah.
like, if the positive is what we defined as these 3 levels of reality and like the 2 ways of perceiving it.
Yeah.
What we're discussing as these 5 inaccurate are like the negative space to define that.
Well,
So it's like, oh, this is a doubt. I know that I'm not grasping this correctly.
Right.
And so I know this is not valid. I'm going to go to what is valid,
Great. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. Number 3. Can we say chiche?
Chiche.
Again, chiche.
Chiche.
That is recollection. So here we're saying that if you see something, so deeply, oh, that's not right. Forget the copy on the bottom.
Oh.
Sorry. Just keep it at recollection. It means that anything that you recall, a memory that you recall, isn't considered a valid perception.
This is where the cupcake came in.
Yeah, this is where the
Anything that you recall?
Anything that you recall, a memory, recollection is not considered a valid perception. And it makes sense because the way that we define pramana has to do with a fresh state of mind. Because the memory of the perception is always going to be weaker, right, or fuzzier than the actual valid perception when you're experiencing it at the moment. Yeah, I mean, a good example that for me that comes up for this is color. You can't, if I told you, if I showed you a color of, let's say black, right, or green, whatever, pick a color, green, and you have a memory of green, and then I then show you, I take this away and you have a memory of it, and I show you 3 or 4 different shades of green that are similar to it, you won't be able to actually find which green that is. Like your memory has an idea of it, some categories as green, but what exact hue of green, what helix of green, you won't be able to do. Because your memory just, you have these general, categories that's been created, yes.
Is it also talking about like your valid perception right now isn't accurate if you're thinking about a memory? Does that make
No,
sense? Okay.
no, it
Okay.
means like, so you mean you're sitting
Like
in
the
Zoom right
memory
now.
is fuzzy, like making your perception of right now blurry because your mind is.
No.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
You could still have, you could still be experiencing something in the moment, and then, well, because you're never thinking of two things at one time. Your mind actually toggles. It toggles quickly, but you can't think of hot and cold at the same time. So because the mind toggles, you'll be toggling back and forth, but when you're toggling and being present versus a memory, in that present moment, what your experience would be considered valid.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just the memory isn't technically considered valid. Like, how many times have you looked at an apartment and you look at it and you're like, oh, great. And then you go look, and then when you move in, or the second time you go, it's always smaller than the way you think of it. It's always that way, right? It's always, every real estate broker says the same thing. It's true. It's always smaller the second time, because in your memory, it feels so much better or bigger, or it's an upgrade from the life that you had. Right? I mean, that's an example that's real. So the recollection is interesting. I think that's a fascinating one that they've chosen to put in. And what's even more interesting is this scripture is so old. It's so old and yet so true still, which I find just profound.
Are like preconceived notions under like a recollection? It's like, oh, they like Slipknot, they're gonna be that type of person, or whatever, like you have
I think that's such a
or recollections, you're like, oh, I
what kind of person is a Slipknot person?
don't know, they wear a lot of black.
I don't think it would be, but it is a deduction that you make. Yeah, but I don't know if it's considered an invalid perception. It may not be the best deduction for say, or it might be a good deduction.
Because I just feel like preconceptions are, I mean, I don't know where preconceptions fall, because it seems like somewhat of a recollection of like, oh, I've conceived and
Sure.
like define things and bring them to the present and like.
Yeah, I mean, if we play that game or that concept out, technically, that's the idea of projection, right? Where we're taking an idea from our past and projecting onto somebody, which is what we do all the time. I mean, I have preconceived notions about everything all the time, about everybody then, which is true. That's what all projections are about. So are our projections invalid? Technically, no. But are they a correct view from what we've talked about in terms of what correct view? That's also no as well, right? Valid perceptions are things that we use, the way that I'm interpreting it, is valid perceptions are things that we use to understand how we're perceiving. Is that correct view? No, because the idea of correct view to us is that everything is empty, right? The pen is the idea that the pen is empty, right? So when you talk about preconceived notions, to me it brings more of it's bringing more of a concept of how we project onto items to think that they're self-existent or in fact real, right? I project or I perceive or I have a preconceived notion about what a Slipknot type of person is, and then I project onto you based on that profile that I've created for myself that fits, that you are indeed that, right? And but we do that in subtle ways all the time, right? So that to me is more of a conversation about emptiness. That's how I would see it. Does that make sense? Okay. Number 4, Ichu. Again, Ichu. Ichu is speculation. I'm sorry, forget that bottom part. didn't see it. It's speculation and assumption. So presuming to know something which is just a speculation, assumption, or informed guess. So I guess actually you could put it under this category.
Assuming,
Yeah, making the assumption. Yeah.
What did you say it was?
I'm sorry. It's presuming to know something which is really just a speculation. They say it's about an uninformed guess, though, but I think there's latitude for that concept to be in here. I mean, it's more informed, I think, through whatever. Anyway, you know. But any type of speculation or assumptions you have on something or on a situation or on a person or anything would not be considered a valid perception. And the last one, can you say Nangla?
No.
Nangla?
No.
I'm sorry, Ma Nepa.
No.
Okay. So this is, oh, I'm sorry, guys. Okay, this is not speculation, assumption. This is, it appears to you, but you don't ascertain it.
But you don't what?
You don't ascertain it. You don't remember it. So the example that John gave in class last week was, you're focused on something. I think like texting is a great, I'm focusing on text and there's stuff going on around me. Someone's talking to me. This is a great example. I'm texting on my phone or emailing somebody, Armando's talking to me, and I have no idea what he's talking about because I can't focus on it. I hate that. That's an invalid perception. Invalid true perception, but that's what happens for me sometimes, right? So I'm doing something or I'm texting and walking or whatever it is, and something's happening around me, someone's talking to me or something's going on, that experience there is considered an invalid perception. Because I'm not able to focus, but also ascertain. I'm not able to keep that information.
But you're aware.
I'm aware that it's there. Right.
Yeah.
So like, exactly. So, it's like,
Distraction.
Is it like
it's a distraction. Yeah. It's just that, like someone says, hey, can you listen to me? Oh, yeah, I'm listening. I'm totally there. That moment, that's not valid. I'm actually totally not there. In fact, by textbook, it's actually not a valid perception. I'm like, yeah, I'm listening. I'm totally watching. I'm watching it. I'm there. I'm watching it, right? That's not a valid perception. It won't qualify.
What do you have for definition just on
The copy. It was
distraction?
distraction. You can put distraction. They actually didn't have anything because it's a statement. Nangla Nepa. So it was, it appears to you, but you don't ascertain it. We can put distraction. Okay, good? All right, we're almost done with this section. Okay, can you say Seima?
Sema.
Kiebu. Seima? Kiebu.
Not same.
Oh, sorry, Seime. Sorry. See, this is like totally not valid here. Seime? Kebu. Seime? Kebu. Great, thank you. So Seime is valid perception and Kebu is the person or being. So this is a statement that simply says a person who has valid perception all the time, which is basically the Buddha. Or someone who has a valid perception all the time. Someone who has semas all the time is what we call it. Just something you need to know for homework. Okay. And then this section, can we say Tarpa Tang? Tamche Kenpa?
Tamche Kimpa,
Dangder,
Dangder,
Drupe Lam.
Drupe Lam,
Again, Tarpa Dang,
Tarpadam,
Tamche Kempa,
Tamche Kimpa,
Tangder,
Tangder,
Drupe Lam.
Drupe Lam,
So Tarpa is freedom or nirvana, Dang is and, Tamche is everything, Kempa is to know, Dong is again and, Dare is to them, Drupa, Drupe is for going, and Lam is path. So this is, I think John talked about this for sure. He was talking about the second chapter of the book we're studying. So this is the statement for the second chapter of the book we're studying. It is, the way that they have it in the book is nirvana, omniscience, and the path to get them.
What is it, Nirvana and the path?
Yeah, nirvana, omniscience, and the path to get them. It's basically just stating about how this is the path. The second chapter is about the path to be able to reach nirvana or enlightenment. Okay.
is this the same master?
No, I don't know who this. I don't think it's Dignaga because he said it was Dharma, or no, Karmala Shila last week. I'll find out. I actually don't know. I think it was Kamala Shila.
Dharma Kirti.
Oh, it's Dharma Kirti?
So this is Master Dharma.
Yeah, this was Master Dharma Kirti.
Is this for homework or?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay. Two kinds of samas that we talked about last week. Or pranamas. One is direct perception, so it doesn't depend on reasoning, which we talked about today, even in homework. The second one is deductive reasoning, where it depends on some sort of good reasoning or deduction, which leads you to something or to the answer. Right? And deductive reasoning has three kinds of deductive reasoning in it. There's logical reasoning that we talked about. So it's used to perceive hidden things that we've talked about in class. And we just talked about during the quiz. Plus two. The second one is belief in an authority. So it's listening to someone who's reputable or who has authority, listening to them. And the third one is based on convention, which we talked about, which is everyone has decided to agree that this wall is called white and it's called a wall, right? We've all agreed that it's called white. So that's another way that deductive reasoning is used.
Sorry, on number two, like how's that part of subset of deductive reasoning?
Yeah, so that's what I asked last week too, and they said technically it's not, it just happens to be bucketed in there.
It's just like reputation.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's authority that's, yeah, I'm just going with that. It's authority that is doing, it's not deductive, I suppose. It's not deductive. Yeah, I asked that last week too.
I mean, do you think like if you were, if this was in the context of Buddhism and it's like we want to find a teacher, I mean, is authority
Sure.
the same as a teacher?
Yeah.
It's like then
Right.
you kind of test your teacher.
Sure,
Right?
yeah. I mean, in that route, if you look at it that way too, when you find a teacher, your teacher has, when you're looking at your Buddhist teacher, that teacher has all that information so that you're trusting. But it's not technically deductive because you're not deducing, you're just taking for what your teacher is saying.
Yeah.
But it is tucked into that category.
But if I get, maybe, I don't know, if you perceive an authority or like what you define as an
Sure.
authority and like
That you
You
deduce
find-
there,
Right,
yeah,
like
sure.
kind of deducing why they're authority figures, right?
Okay. Just make sure you find the right authority figure. And that's it. Okay, let's take a break. So we'll just take a quick break. We're gonna come back and then sit in a circle and just do discussion and wrap up class. Thanks. whether they articulate it as emptiness or not, but there's an endeavor that they're trying to have. People do that a lot with any type of creativity, right? How do you change your perception of experiencing food that looks this way but tastes that way, right? So there's always a play that people are doing in the creative industries that I notice, right? So there's something about as you start to practice, you will start to see differently. Things start to sound different. And even when I'm listening to thought leaders or directors or writers or reading something, I can get a sense from even just subtle languages of that person's had some serious realizations. Like something is there, right? Versus now I can tell the difference when I hear bullshit. Like that's easier for me, where I'm sitting in a room, like, dude, you're so far off base, you know? And those are just my perceptions that I have, but I start to see it more, and I see it, I remember people saying all the time when I was starting to practice, they would say things like, you never know who anybody is because you don't know, like, you might be the Buddha for all I know, and just coming in as this wonderful, lovely woman that's in this room, and just to humble me. And my teachers would say this, and I think this a lot of the times where I see all of you, and I think you're all just here to humor me because you're all manifestations of the Buddha, and you're trying to teach me how to better elevate my practice because I need that support help. So when teachers look and they say thank you, they're not thanking the conventional you. They're thanking the ultimate you. So when we bow down to each other, we're bowing down to the ultimate you, the ultimate me that we see in each other, because that's what it is. It's actually quite beautiful. So the way that it's like there's a moment where when you find a teacher, when you're looking for a teacher, yes, we have the buckets, and that's to make sure and for your safety, and that's why they're there. But then there is that aspect where, especially, it is that hidden phenomenon. I don't know why, and I don't get it, but for some reason, and my heart teacher, I'll talk to her about emptiness, and she's like, ugh, whatever. I'm like, no, I want to know, whatever. She's just not interested at all. She's like, I'm like, well, what do you want to do? And she's like, I want to go to Crate and Barrel. I'm like, we're going shopping? She's like, we're going, and she's an old Tibetan woman. She's in her 80s now, and she's sitting there with her walking stick and helping her, thinking, I'm in Crate and Barrel with my old Tibetan, my Lama. So strange. And to me, I realize that is how she connects with me, because there are certain conventional natures where it's like, I need it to be a certain way. And that's what it is. And we'll never talk about it. But I know that when I'm in front of her, when I'm with her, my whole world shifts. What is that? I don't know. I don't know what it is. But I know that that's something I have, right? So and every teacher is different, right? Every experience is different. I have other teachers where it's a different type of experience, where it may not be moving my heart so much, but it's moving my mind in a way that I've never done, I've never experienced before. And I don't need to go through, I do a gut check of what that list looks like, but it may not be please sign on the dot that you've had direct perception of emptiness. It's also the idea of just knowing that cognitively, intellectually they understand and can articulate it. That also suffices. Of course, yeah. I mean, ultimately, you want a teacher that you can learn from, right, that knows more than you. That's what you want. That's what you want to ensure. That help? Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I don't know. I just thought we would open up class discussion for a little bit and just see if there's anything out there, any questions, anything that anyone's struggling with. We can sit in a circle, however you want to be relaxed.
Are you done with the projections?
I'm gonna keep it so that when we do closing, we'll have it, but right now it's black. I have it as
It's
a
fine,
black
I'm just gonna silence the projector.
Okay.
So it's not like,
Okay, so how's everyone's week? How's everything? Are there anything Is there any topic or question anyone wants to bring up, or anything that is you're struggling with, or the floor is open to you all? Everyone's life is amazing.
Yes, let's start with, how do we snap out of it when we are not in valid perception?
How do we snap out of it when we're not in valid perception? Okay. Any takers? Does anyone have any antidotes, methods?
I mean, I guess just from this class, I would just say like you'd probably go back to the definitions of like what the valid perceptions are,
Mm-hmm.
and like because I guess I already forgot the quiz. You know, if the first one is a direct perception, correct perception, it's using your senses, awareness, and thoughts to correctly perceive something. But then I think it can get fuzzy, like when you're like, well, how can I trust myself, you know? Or, and then deductive reasoning using logic to deduce it. But so it's like I think there's some situations where it's like obvious, but then I think it gets harder the more subtle things get.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think being able to just identify first and foremost, right? Where you're sitting and you're thinking, okay, I realize that this is not a valid perception, right? But it's all I have to work on. And like when you're in a situation where, let's say, you're under a lot of pressure and a lot of stress, right? And it's afflicting your mind, and you have moments of you're moving through those 5 different types of perceptions, you know, like you're moving through all 5 of them back and forth during your day. You have to function. You can't be going through your life being like, this is invalid perception number 3. This is number 4. This is number 2. Like, how am I? It's going to make you go mad, right? So when you have moments where, I think the question that you had was for doubt, or was it doubt? Okay, right. Let's say you take doubt, for example, right? When you know you have afflictions that come up, or doubt in particular that's on that list, right? Or preconceived notion or assumptions that you're putting onto situations and people. In that moment, to be able to first articulate and identify for yourself and understand that that's what's going on is, I think, one of the first keys, because you can't tackle it if you don't know what it is, right? Can't, it's impossible. And then the second thing to me is, at least for me, time and time again, is you have to train your mind. You have to be able to train your mind. So in that moment, how do I unplug out of it? How do I get space? And how do you train your mind? Through meditation. I mean, there's something about self-awareness that happens with meditation that allows you, maybe not in the moment to plug out completely, but it does help give you space to identify. And then it goes in phases. It's like afflictions that rise. It's not a matter of, oh, I'm not patient today, so I'll be patient tomorrow. That's impossible. It may just be, okay, it took me 1 second less to snap. You know, my threshold was just a half second more. It's incremental. So when you have moments, I think, that you realize aren't valid perceptions and they've obscured your perception of reality that you're living in, being able to first identify it, but also how do you create space so that you can change your mind and be like, okay, we're changing course of action. But if you can't, if your mind is not, if you have no control of your mind, you can't tell it to go a different way. It's impossible, right? Because when you are freaked out or you're overwhelmed or you're frustrated, that is like there's a trajectory there. And if you don't know how to move your mind to another way or stop it or take a moment to breathe, right? It's impossible. There's, in terms of those 5, there are no antidotes that we have that are in the textbook. There are different antidotes that we've talked about when we have different kinds of afflictions, but with those 5, I don't know of any specific antidotes, but that would be that's my answer to that question.
I think to add to that question, like say say you get into a disagreement with someone and like eventually you have to arrive to a compromise, you have to give in.
Mhm.
You know, like, okay, you hurt my feelings because of these reasons, and my feelings I feel are so valid, and like my, you know, how I perceive this situation, this pen is so valid, and then this other person's like, well, yeah, but I feel this way and it's valid. So it's like if two people are having valid perceptions, but perceiving something different, it's like, how do you negotiate that?
Reconcile that,
Yeah.
yeah. It's interesting because we've gone to a culture where there's like, I'm right and you're wrong, and there's only one answer, right? Instead of realizing that there's always multiple answers. I mean, to everything. Whether you agree with it is a different situation. But right and wrong is a very fascinating thing that we get into, right? Where it's like, how do you, and so even when you do practices like the Tonglen that we started with, getting into someone's shoes or being able to experience their pain is a way that we start to look at understanding the perceptions that everybody has and realizing that the world is not focused around just me and my idea and my concepts in my life, as much as I wish it would be. But it's not, you know, it comes from me, but it's not. And so I think that the ability to have compassion is the, like, for me, is like such a big part of trying to understand perspective and different perceptions where you can agree to disagree, which is one kind of conventional way we talk about, so, you know, finding a solution. But here we've talked so much more about how do you have true empathy and what does compassion look like? And how do you understand and even do a meditation on not just someone you love, but maybe someone you don't even like very much, where you're like, I really don't want to, there's this person at work that drives me crazy, and I cannot stand that person. And you bring that person right in front of you, and you're trying to take that person's pain away because you understand something must have happened to that person, right? That's creating that much suffering. And if that was taken away, and absorbed and completely abolished, what would that person be? Because that person wants to be happy too, right? Everyone wants to. The power of love and happiness is extraordinary. And that person wants to be happy too. You don't want to be a jerk. No one wants to be, no one's like living their life and like, I'm going to be the best asshole possible today. No one's doing that. Yeah. They don't.
Definitely know some shots who are.
Yeah, but they're doing it. They're doing that out of a place of either it's fear or power based on their insecurities. There's something underneath it that's being expressed, right? Where that's the tool that they've been taught to utilize and harness their power, right? And that power needs to be there because there's usually a great fear that's supplementing it, right? It's coming from a place of I want to be the best. I want the, you know, or I want this team to be the best. Is it the healthiest way? No. But what the core, they just don't have the right tool set. But the core of it is really not of, I want to be a jerk today. It just expresses that way. And that's
They
how
want
they
just
feel.
want to feel better.
Hmm?
They just want to feel better.
They want to feel better.
Everyone's searching for that.
Everyone is doing
Some
that.
just requires it to affect other people to feel bad.
Right. Yeah, yeah. You know, there's just, we all, I believe all humans really want to matter. I think all humans want to be accepted and loved. And I think all humans truly want to be their potential. I do think that. I just think how we go about it and, you know, all the things that we learn to be able to protect ourselves and the fears that get in the way. I mean, really the fear is something massive, right? It just seems like, so the more you can be able to understand the human suffering, you know, that we're dealing with, and the core of it, it changes the way that you interact with people, where you start to see, man, every time you act like such a jerk, what you do to your body, what you do to your mind, what you do for your future self, what you're doing for can you imagine when you're being such a jerk, what your worldview must look like. How sad is that? You know? So understanding that, I think, allows that conversation to see the different perceptions. Not that you agree with it, but at least it will get into a place, I think, where the conversation isn't I'm right and you're not, but more like, how am I going to understand where you're coming from and see if there's a place for us to connect, you know, and find a common ground that we share, you know, and maybe I express it differently than you. And maybe, and that's how, as practitioners, right, and as philosophers, we continue to grow. It's not just in isolation and in a silo. It's about how do you affect the world that you live in and the people that you live amongst. It has to be that way. What's the whole point if you're in your silo and you're like, I'm so happy and I'm so, you know, by yourself, and everyone is just miserable? It's no good. It doesn't help. It doesn't make your life better, right? Yeah. Any last questions?
Question about deductive reasoning, like based on convention. Because I feel like in one of the first classes we had, like we were talking about like what is a valid perception, like if a group of people agree upon like the sky is blue, you know, is that a valid perception just because, you know, the whole flock said yes, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that was in one of the points tonight, right? So technically, it's considered a type of deductive reasoning, sure. If there's a universal general truth, right? We're going to identify all of us as humans. I mean, I think that if we start looking at if there's a separation between half the population believes one way and half another, then
like I feel like there's an interesting point in time right now with like disinformation as a tool and mechanism to influence people's minds and decisions, you know, like the whole like scandal with Russia and like all that, you know, it's like there's like fake accounts that just create fake news and like the way it's disseminated and everyone and the algorithms keep you in your own echo chamber. So it's like in a way like you can easily be a victim of like convention.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure. Yeah, especially with media and proliferation of content and of how it's being distributed.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I think that in the context that we're talking about here, there has to be an understanding, at least if you are looking at deductive reasoning, that you can also deduce and know that there are silos being created, right? That it's your responsibility to reason and understand that this is information that's given to me right now, and I realize that that's a silo, and that there are other ones that are out there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And knowing that information.
Yeah.
I mean, deductive reasoning isn't just kind of like, there has to be, I think, at least some level of research. And you have to inquire and you have to be looking at it to ensure that that's valid for you. You know, because otherwise you, I don't know, just be in a cult and be like, this is it, this is great. You know, I mean, really. Right? And so I think especially with technology, doing that research, understanding that is a big part of it. It's a responsibility that we have. And it's I mean, even the fact about it in a space like this is extraordinary. There are so many parts of the world that you can't even openly talk about concepts like this. They do not want you deductively reasoning anything. And there's a reason for that. So the fact that we even have this available to us, that is your karma, that you have that. It is your karma, all of you, to be able to live in a country that is free to be able to learn information and that's not restricted. You know, I mean, I was just having a conversation with my colleague about what's going on with China and what they're doing with information and how she has a girlfriend of hers who was sending things on WhatsApp or WeChat, and there are certain aspects where she knows she texted certain information, and it was just never about a certain event that I don't want them to know about, and it's just went to nowhere. No one got it. Fascinating, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. But it's true.
The United States does it too on a certain level. Just
Sure. Yeah.
as much or
Yeah.
obvious.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Okay. Nice. Great. Okay. But please, during the week, really think about these concepts, see how it applies to you, see how it makes sense, see if it works. Because you might realize this, you might come back next week and say, I've been thinking about point number 4 or number 1, and I just don't think that's true. So play with it and tinker with it and see how it functions for you, okay? It can't just be something that's, okay, I learned it in the classroom and you don't apply it. This only works if you apply it.
Sashi Puki Jushin Mito Cham Rira Blingshin Inde Gimpadi Samge Shindu Mite Uwagi Droku Namdak Shinla Chuparshu Iram Ratnamanda Kamyatayami Diyogu Sunam Yeshe Sososhin Sunam Yeshe Lechungwe Dampa Kumi Truparshu.
Just sit comfortably. And we're just going to close with rejoice in your efforts for coming to class tonight, sticking through it, staying awake and alert, curious and open. Commend your efforts. Commend yourself for making this a priority for yourself, for your fellow brothers and sisters in this room, for the communities you live in, and for the world. And then dedicate your efforts. You dedicate to someone you love. Maybe the person that was in front of you at the beginning of class. Wishing them ultimate happiness. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I take her?
Yes, I will.